Pharaoh ruled ancient Egypt as a living god, backing his claim to divinity with the weight of immense military and architectural might. When word reached his court of a prophecy that a child from the enslaved Bani Israel would eventually end his reign, he responded with a state-sponsored campaign to execute every newborn boy in that community. This was a man who commanded an empire and massive stone pyramids, yet he was driven to terror by the thought of a single infant. He deployed his entire army to hunt down babies in their cradles. Pharaoh's reliance on physical brutality revealed the fragility of his control. His power was an attempt to override a divine will that his soldiers could not reach. While Pharaoh's decree spread terror across Egypt, Musa's mother gave birth in secret. She had no worldly means to protect her son from the soldiers searching the houses. She received divine inspiration to place the child in a wooden basket and set him adrift. To save his life, she had to surrender him to these sweeping currents and trust a path she could not see. The basket floated past military checkpoints and palace guards, moving directly into the center of the regime that sought his death. It washed up at the steps of Pharaoh's own palace. Pharaoh's wife, Asiya, discovered the child and protected him, halting the execution order. In a final irony, the palace hired and paid Musa's own mother to nurse him, keeping her son hidden in the enemy's home. This sequence demonstrates a foundational principle. When one surrenders to divine guidance, the very structures of an enemy's power can be repurposed into a sanctuary. Musa was raised in luxury as a prince of Egypt. However, his life shifted when he intervened to protect an oppressed man, accidentally killing an Egyptian taskmaster in the struggle. He fled Egypt as a hunted fugitive, leaving the palace for the isolation of the Madian desert, now a man with nothing. In Madian, Musa lived as a shepherd. For years, he lived in a wilderness where Egyptian titles and palace influence carried no weight, forcing him to learn endurance and a total reliance on the Creator rather than human systems. This decade of labor and silence prepared him to eventually face the palace again, not as a former prince, but as a messenger who no longer recognized the authority of a human king. Traveling near these jagged peaks at Ko-e-Tor, Musa observed a strange light and received the divine call. His exile ended here with the grant of prophethood and a command to return to Pharaoh. He was granted two specific signs to use in his confrontation. His walking staff could transform into a living serpent, and his hand would radiate a blinding light. These miracles were targeted proofs. Pharaoh claimed supreme capability over all things in Egypt. These signs demonstrated a mastery over matter itself that no human king could replicate. Musa returned to the court and presented his message. Pharaoh mocked him, calling upon the state's elite magicians to use their own visual tricks to discredit Musa's claims. The magicians used ropes to create the appearance of slithering snakes, but when Musa threw his staff, it became a real serpent and consumed their tools. This diagram shows the logic. Human trickery relies on optical manipulation, while divine reality actually alters physical matter. The magicians were experts in illusion. They knew immediately this was not a trick. They publicly submitted to a law, abandoning Pharaoh in his court. When the tyrant's own experts acknowledge a higher truth, the foundation of his arrogant power begins to dismantle. As Musa led Bani Israel out of Egypt, they reached a geographic trap. The sea was in front of them, and Pharaoh's vengeful, fully mobilized army was closing in from behind. While his followers panicked, Musa remained steady, the direct result of his years of training in the desert. He told them, "My Lord is with me," trusting in a path that had not yet appeared. He struck the water with his staff. The ocean displaced, pulling back to form heavy walls, revealing a dry corridor straight through the seabed. Bani Israel moved through this corridor, finding safety in a passage that defied every law of the natural world. Unwavering faith provides a path where nature itself yields, opening a route when every human option has been closed. Pharaoh's arrogance blinded him to the divine nature of the event. He led his army into the sea, only for the water to come crashing together, completely erasing his forces. As the water collapsed, Pharaoh's worldly power vanished. In his final moments, he tried to declare his faith, but the opportunity to acknowledge the truth had passed. The remains of his body were preserved, as promised. The sunken features and brittle bandages offer a physical measure of mortal limits, showing the final state of a ruler who once demanded worship. Musa's journey illustrates that the most entrenched systems of control can be bypassed when trust is placed in a higher divine order.